Imagine is the advertising slogan chosen by the biotech corporation. Imagine that the food Monsanto wants to supply to the world is not safe. What happens then?
Unique animal and human food safety concerns.
And these can create unpredicted allergies or toxins or new diseases or nutritional problems.
And that's where I had a big problem. If we're going to feed that seed that has proteins that are just new, just brand new we don't know anything about.
The research appeared to be rigged to avoid finding.
It helps cancer cells grow. It helps all.
A terrible spin and lie.
Conception rate problem and go sterile.
There is a difference in the milk. Monsanto says there isn't, but there is. There are
threatened thousands of American farmers with.
And ultimately, they lied to us.
The other one, the genetically modified one, there's several different proteins, not just the one we want, but there's also a different spectrum of various lengths of protein in there too. Mad cow type disease. It is disease spread by proteins. So
that even a slight shift in a constituent of a plant that might not have an effect if humans ate it because of the level at which they would consume the plant, he said that same plant can be a major constituent of the farm animal's diet and therefore could create major problems for the animal and then for the human consumer of either the meat or the milk or the eggs of that animal. And that's why they felt that it was a very serious matter and it had to be carefully tested.
These tests were never conducted, however, just as the critical FDA memos were never publicized. Monsanto had managed to place its own man in a key post at one of the authorities. Gene technology was green-lighted.
This, I believe, is one of the greatest frauds ever perpetrated by any government in history.
For the sake of a continent threatened by famine, I urge the European governments to end their opposition to biotechnology.
The concept that genetically modified crops are needed to feed the world is not only a terrible spin and lie, it actually works against feeding the world. It gives the impression, first of all, that production is the key point in feeding the world, when in fact we have more food per person than any time in human history, and 30,000 people die every day from starvation. So it's not production. The second thing is, genetically modified crops, on the average, don't increase yield. They actually decrease yield so far. It's basically a public relations spin, and it sort of creates this moral dilemma for those who are against the technology to feel, well, how can I be against the technology if it'll help starving people?
Deals, I was pulled aside by one of the vice presidents, and he said, we're not necessarily about all these good things, reducing waste and feeding the world. We're about making money.
Monsanto began by manufacturing insecticides and later went on to genetically engineer the plants themselves for greater resistance. This allowed the plants to better tolerate Monsanto's own crop sprays. Of primary importance was that everything could be patented.
Patenting is all about control, and Monsanto is all about control. They're already the #1 seed company in the world, and they control those seeds through patents, through government monopolies, so they and only they can use those seeds. The common heritage of the world, the seeds of the world, are now owned primarily by one company that has them in monopoly. It's a very broad patent that would grant, if it's accepted worldwide, would grant Monsanto control of a significant percentage of all the pigs in the world. And here's what's so critical. The patent isn't just for the pigs. It's for the pigs' offspring. So Mother Nature works for Monsanto's profit. Every time pigs naturally reproduce, that is a violation of the patent that you would have to pay Monsanto for. One of the most under-publicized actions of Monsanto with its patents is its persecution of American farmers. We have just completed a study that shows that they have threatened thousands of American farmers with lawsuits for violating their patents. That over 129 lawsuits have been filed by Monsanto against American farmers, and they have reaped millions of dollars. And this is Monsanto coming in with its huge legal team, all of its power coming after a small farmer in South Dakota or Nebraska or in Indiana, trespassing on their land, making up, in many cases, lies about what these farmers were doing and not doing, persecuting them, and often driving them out of business. We have documented this. If this is what Monsanto will do to these farmers, imagine what they'll do to the farmers around the world. If this is what they're doing with their patents on crops, imagine what they'll do to farmers when they've patented the animals of the world as well.
So what was the upshot of all these problems?
The end result here was that I could not incur the debt anymore. I couldn't pay back. We lost right at $1 million with this thing. I lost my farm and my livelihood.
The former pig farmer says that his attempts to have the genetically modified feed tested were blocked by massive opposition.
I was totally appalled at the treatment that I received from the USDA, the EPA, and the FDA at the national levels and at the state levels. Everyone tried to make this go under the floor. Their comments from the seed corn company was that we will ignore Jerry Roseman and eventually he will starve and go away and the problem will no longer exist.
In the USA, environmental activist Jeffrey Smith has heard about another experiment. He therefore pays another visit to Jerry Roseman, the ruined pig farmer. Roseman is disappointed with himself and with the fact that he believed the promises of the genetically modified feed producers.
I tried to do the right thing. You know, I was one of the technology people. You know, I was right on the cutting edge of everything for the farm, you know, because this is what we were told to do. And ultimately, you know, they lied to us. We were told that these products were safe when we were handed them to us, and ultimately I found out that there's virtually no testing, and anyone that comes up with any kind of a problem whatsoever with it, there's absolutely no cooperation other than to bury them in paper and make them go away.
Now Roseman is doing the tests himself without outside help. He has been able to squirrel away some of the genetically modified corn, which he is now occasionally feeding to a few cattle.
And these animals 4 years ago were sterile. We got them off of the corn, got them on green grass, and they were reproduced fine. This last winter, I went ahead and started to experiment again and fed them the problematic corn here. And at the present time, these three cows are barren, and the bull is basically sterile. And that was after feeding the corn to them for approximately 90 days. And here next week, we'll take them back off of the corn, and eventually the bull will come back to being viral, and the cows most likely will conceive a calf for next year. And this is what I've determined myself here with the limited funding that I can do myself.
When you insert a gene, the DNA can rearrange, can delete genes, turn them on permanently, turn them off. Can create mutations up and down the genome, and these can create unpredicted allergies or toxins or new diseases or nutritional problems.